My name is Jessica Monroe and I'm 33 years old, a software engineer living in Austin, Texas that I've spent most of my adult life believing that logic could fix almost anything. If something broke, you debugged it. If someone lied, you found the pattern. But the night I discovered the truth about my own family, there was no patch for that. It started as an ordinary Thursday evening. I just finished a 12-hour shift working from home, pushing code that no one but my team would ever see. My parents had called earlier that evening, and we talked about small things: my mom's garden, my dad's latest obsession with the Dallas Cowboys, my sister's new business idea. We said our goodnights. I pressed end call. But they didn't. Through the faint static of the open line, I heard my father's voice, stripped of every ounce of warmth I'd ever known. "Living with her is awful," he said. "We're only staying because of her money." The sentence hit me like a car I never saw coming. Then came my sister's laugh, that cruel, effortless sound she'd perfected since childhood. "Told you she wouldn't notice," she said. My fingers tightened around the phone until it hurt. My heartbeat climbed into my throat, fast and heavy, while my mind tried to deny what my ears already knew. I sat there frozen, listening to their voices echo through the speaker, casual, unfiltered, dissecting me like I wasn't even human. The father who taught me to ride a bike. The mother who said I was her pride. The sister I'd shared secrets with. They weren't talking to me anymore. They were talking about me. And I realized I was never part of their family conversation. I was the topic. When the line finally went dead, I just stared at the phone, the screen black, cold, reflecting my face back at me, a stranger's face that I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in silence, as if sound itself might make it real. Outside, Austin hummed, cars on the highway, laughter from the bar across the street. Life continued, indifferent to the sound of a heart breaking. Morning came. I made coffee like nothing had happened. The kitchen smelled of toast and bacon. The Texas sunlight spilled through the blinds, painting everything gold. But none of it reached me. My dad came in first, eyes avoiding mine. "Morning," he mumbled. Mom followed, bright, overcompensating. "You slept okay, sweetie?" she asked, her hands too busy, her smile too wide. And then came my sister, Melissa, glued to her phone, barely muttering a hello before sitting down. They were the same people, yet not. Their voices were the same, yet hollow. I watched them like a detective watching suspects. Every movement, every pause, every line of dialogue suddenly meant something. 3 years ago, after my grandfather died, I'd inherited enough to buy this house. Big enough for all of us. I thought it would bring us closer, like some sentimental American dream. My parents had retired early, and Melissa's fashion business had crashed before it even took off. So I invited them to live with me. I covered everything: bills, groceries, car repairs, medical insurance, even Melissa's business investments. I thought that's what family did. You give, you help, you hold each other up. But that call, that one slip of technology, revealed what I'd really been holding up: not family, but dependence. Not love, but debt with a smile. That morning, I opened a new note on my phone: Dad, avoids eye contact. Mom, too cheerful. Melissa, indifferent. Each word was a new stitch in a wound that wouldn't close. Days passed, and I started seeing everything differently. Dad's concerned questions about my savings. Mom's sudden interest in my bonus. Melissa's fake gratitude followed by yet another small favor. I noticed how my mother's shopping trips grew bolder. How my father always forgot his wallet. How Melissa's social media posts never mentioned her failures, only her supportive family. My logic brain kicked in. I started collecting data. Bills. Receipts. Bank statements. That's when I saw it, the pattern. A $4,000 transfer labeled consulting fee, another $2,500 2 weeks later, dozens more, all leading to an account I didn't recognize. When I checked the recipient, the name was right there, Melissa Monroe Designs LLC. My sister's dead company, the one I'd already bailed out twice. I felt my chest tighten. The truth wasn't new, it was confirmation. Like reading code you didn't write but somehow already knew the bug existed. I wanted to believe there was an explanation. A mix-up. Some automatic payment. But when I confronted my mom casually that Sunday afternoon, while she chopped vegetables for dinner, her answer sealed it. "Oh, those," she said, smiling too fast. "Just gifts for Melissa, to help her get back on her feet." "Gifts," I repeated, without asking me. She laughed nervously, the knife tapping against the cutting board. "Don't make a big deal out of it, Jessica. We're family. We share." Her tone was syrup, too sweet, too sticky, and I realized, she wasn't explaining. She was excusing. That night, I drove to my bank. The woman at the counter wore glasses and kindness, the kind of face that doesn't ask questions you're not ready to answer. I told her I needed a new account, private, secure. I moved half my inheritance into it. 6 figures. The number looked both huge and tiny on the screen. When I signed the forms, my hands were steady, for the first time in years, something was mine again. Sunday dinner smelled like roasted chicken and rosemary. The kind of meal meant to taste like family that I sat there with my fork untouched, my heart pounding in time with the ticking wall clock. Dad was talking about football. Mom was pretending everything was fine. Melissa was scrolling, her phone glowing like an accomplice. I took a deep breath. "I heard your call last week," I said quietly. "You didn't hang up." Everything stopped. Dad's knife froze mid-slice. Mom's face went pale. Melissa's phone slipped from her fingers and hit the table. "You said living with me is awful," I continued. "That you're only staying because of my money." Dad blinked, trying to recover. "It was just talk, sweetheart. Don't take everything so seriously." Mom nodded quickly. "We were joking, honey. You know we love you." Their voices were wrong, rehearsed, and Melissa, silent until now, looked up with that same mocking smirk I'd heard through the phone. "You're overreacting. You always do." I pushed my chair back slowly. "Then explain this." I held up my phone, the screenshot of her public post calling me a stingy control freak who hoards her money. The same sister who'd begged for loans and vacations now bragged online about how toxic I was. Mom gasped. Dad looked away. Melissa's smirk faded. I saw the transfers. The lies. The post. "I'm done being your bank." Dad's voice rose. "Jessica, calm down. We're family." "No," I said. "Family doesn't steal." I stood up. "You have until tomorrow morning to pack your things." Mom's fork clattered. "You can't mean that." Melissa laughed, bitter, small. "You'll miss us." I looked her straight in the eye. "No. I'll finally have peace." They left before sunrise. The house felt lighter and heavier all at once. When I finally stepped out of my room, the silence hit me first, the kind that rings in your ears. Mom's favorite throw blanket was gone. Dad's coffee mug, the one chipped at the rim, no longer sat by the sink. Melissa's charger, always plugged into the hallway outlet, had disappeared too. I stood there, barefoot on the hardwood floor, surrounded by spaces that looked the same but weren't. Every absence told a story. They'd left, but not quietly, drawers half closed. A photo frame face down. A faint scent of my mother's perfume clinging to the hallway like a ghost. For a moment, I wanted to run after them, apologize. Undo everything. Pretend the call never happened, but then I remembered their voices, that cold sentence, that mocking laugh, and the sympathy turned to stone. I poured myself coffee and sat at the kitchen table. The mug felt too heavy in my hands. My phone buzzed. 3 messages. Mom, Jessica, we're sorry. We never meant to hurt you, Dad. You're overreacting, sweetheart. Let's fix this, Melissa. You didn't have to kick us out. Call me. I stared at the screen until it went dark again. The apologies came too fast, too polished, not grief, strategy. I didn't reply. Instead, I called a lawyer. By noon, I was sitting in a downtown office, the kind with glass walls and muted gray furniture that absorbs emotion. The lawyer's name was Sandra Lewis, mid-40s, sharp eyes, no nonsense. That I told her everything. The open call, the money transfers, the business account under Melissa's name. She listened without flinching, taking notes in clean, slanted handwriting. When I finished, she closed the folder. You need to secure your assets, she said. We'll issue a cease and desist for any further access, review your property rights, and make sure they can't touch a cent. It sounded clinical, almost cold. But that cold was what I needed, because I'd been living in warmth that burned. I signed the papers with steady hands. When I walked out of the building, the Texas sun hit my face, hot, honest, unforgiving. For the first time, I didn't flinch. The first week alone felt like detox. I kept expecting to hear footsteps, voices, the sound of Dad's TV blaring sports highlights, but the only sound was me, the hum of my laptop, the soft scrape of my fork at dinner. Some nights, I'd catch myself setting out 4 plates instead of 1. Habit. Memory. Muscle built on years of caretaking. I found myself wandering into the spare rooms, the one where Mom had kept her sewing machine, the one Dad used as an office, but mostly for naps, empty now. The sunlight pooled differently in each. I could breathe again, and it terrified me. Because silence, when you're not used to it, can sound a lot like guilt. Work helped. I threw myself into projects, staying up late with code that didn't betray me. That I ordered takeout, drank coffee at 2 a.m., and told myself I was rebuilding. But grief is sneaky. That IT hides under routine. One night, while sorting old folders, I found a photo, me at 8, missing a tooth, sitting on Dad's shoulders at the county fair. He was laughing, she was smiling. Melissa, still small, clutching cotton candy. I stared at it until the edges blurred. I wasn't crying for them. That I was crying for that version of us, the one that never really existed. Weeks passed. Mom texted twice more, shorter each time. That we love you. Please talk to us. Then nothing. I heard through a mutual friend that they'd rented a small apartment on the other side of Austin. Dad had picked up a part-time job at a hardware store. Mom was selling jewelry online. I thought it would make me feel vindicated. That IT didn't. It just made me sad, not for them, but for the cycle. That they'd lived beyond their means for years, convinced someone else would clean up the mess. When that someone stopped, they called it betrayal. Funny, isn't it, how people can drain you dry, then call your silence cruelty. 2 months later, I saw Melissa. It wasn't planned. That I ran into her at a local cafe, her hair pulled into a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes. She looked smaller somehow, like someone who'd been living under fluorescent light instead of sunlight. She noticed me instantly. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she walked over, clutching her coffee like a shield. Hey, she said, voice unsure. You look good. I didn't answer that. What are you doing here, Mel? She shrugged. Working on a new project. She gestured toward her laptop, its cracked screen betraying the truth, no investors yet. But I'm trying. Something flickered in her voice, not arrogance this time, but exhaustion. I heard about Mom and Dad, I said quietly. How are they? She hesitated. Managing. Barely. Dad's not great. Mom cries a lot. I nodded, not out of pity, but recognition that they'd built a life on taking. Learning to live without it must have felt like withdrawal. She looked at me for a long time, then, almost whispering, "Do you hate us?" I exhaled. No. But I don't trust you. She blinked. That's fair. For a brief moment, the air softened between us, not forgiveness, but something like understanding, then she ruined it. You could help, though, she said, too quickly. Just a little loan to get things back on track. I laughed, not cruelly, but incredulously. Melissa, I said, this is the track. You're on it. Her expression collapsed, half anger, half shame. You've changed, she said. No, I replied. I finally stopped pretending. I left before she could answer. That night, I dreamed of the phone call again, but this time, when I heard my father's voice say, "Living with her is awful," I didn't freeze that I hung up. When I woke, the house was quiet, but it wasn't empty anymore. That it was mine. A few days later, Sandra, my lawyer, called. The cease and desist went through, she said. They no longer have access to your accounts. Also, the property title has been updated under your sole ownership. Hearing it spoken aloud felt strange. Ownership. Sole, words that had once sounded selfish now felt like survival. Thank you, I said. Jessica, she added, her tone softening, you'd be surprised how many people go through this. Family can be complicated when money's involved. I smiled weakly. Yeah. I just didn't expect my story to sound like a courtroom case. She paused. You'd be surprised how often love and law meet in the same room. After the call, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the folder she'd sent over, legal proof that I wasn't crazy. For months, I'd let guilt whisper that maybe I'd overreacted, that maybe love was supposed to hurt a little. But guilt is just grief with bad manners. And I was done apologizing for protecting myself. Still, some nights the memories sneaked in. The way Dad used to pat my shoulder when I fixed his computer, Mom humming while she cooked, Melissa begging me to braid her hair before school. They came back in fragments, uninvited and sharp, but I didn't push them away. That I let them exist, ghosts that could no longer touch me. Because healing isn't deletion. It's coexistence. One Friday evening, months later, I met up with my friend Christine, my anchor through all this, at a small diner near downtown. She slid into the booth, handed me a coffee, and smiled. So, she said, how's freedom treating you? I laughed softly. Loud. Quiet. Expensive. Peaceful. She nodded. Sounds like adulthood. We talked for hours, work, movies, life, and not once did I mention my family, not because I was hiding them, but because they no longer defined the plot of my story. When I got home that night, the house was dark, still, clean. That I turned on a lamp, opened my laptop, and looked at the balance in my private account, not out of obsession, but gratitude. That money wasn't just inheritance anymore. That it was proof that I could take something built on betrayal and turn it into safety. Later, while washing dishes, I whispered something I hadn't said aloud in months. I forgive you. Not for them, for me. Because forgiveness isn't a door you open for others to walk back in. It's a door you close so you can sleep without listening for footsteps. 6 months have passed, sometimes I still wake before dawn and listen, not for footsteps or voices, but for the absence of them. Silence used to scare me, now it sounds like proof. The house no longer feels like a battlefield. The echo of their arguments has faded, replaced by the hum of my espresso machine, the faint clicking of my keyboard, the soft jazz I play while coding late at night. I've filled the walls with my own things, art from local markets, framed quotes that remind me why boundaries are sacred. I've become someone new here. Not colder, just clearer. One afternoon, while working remotely, an email from my bank pinged. Your mortgage balance has been paid in full. That I stared at it for a long time. That inheritance, the money they'd tried to drain, had finally done what it was meant to do, secure my freedom. I printed the statement and pinned it to a corkboard above my desk. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder, you saved yourself. That night, I celebrated quietly. I cooked dinner for one, grilled salmon, a glass of wine, a candle flickering in the corner. Halfway through, I found myself smiling for no reason. The kind of smile that doesn't need witnesses. Life didn't magically turn perfect. There were still lonely evenings when I scrolled through old photos, wondering if love could ever exist without debt attached, but I also started noticing new things I'd missed when I was busy rescuing everyone else. The way Austin sunsets painted the sky orange before melting into violet, the smell of rain on pavement after a long, hot day, the freedom of saying no without explaining why. I began taking long walks along Lady Bird Lake, headphones in, podcasts humming, watching other people live their own ordinary lives. It hit me how rare peace is, and how loud it becomes once you finally earn it. One Saturday, while browsing at a farmer's market, I heard someone call my name, Jessica. I turned. It was my father. He looked smaller, thinner, his hair grayer than I remembered. His shirt was clean but faded, the kind of fabric softened by too many washes and not enough pride. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he cleared his throat. You look good. So do you, I said, though it wasn't true. He glanced down, awkward. Your mom wanted to come, but she thought maybe she shouldn't. I understand, I said softly. We stood there between stalls of peaches and honey jars, two people trying to recognize each other after a storm. I owe you an apology, he said finally. I was stupid. I let money make me smaller. I didn't interrupt. I should have been proud of you, he continued. Instead, I was jealous. Your mother too. We told ourselves it was love, but it was fear. You didn't deserve that. For a long time, I couldn't speak. That I'd imagined this moment 1,000 ways, shouting, crying, walking away, but none of them fit. I appreciate that, I said. But I can't go back. He nodded, eyes wet but steady. I know. I just wanted you to hear it. We stood there another minute, then he walked away, disappearing into the crowd like a man returning to his consequences. I exhaled, slow, shaky, real. Forgiveness had arrived, not as a gift, but as gravity letting go. That night, I lit a candle on the windowsill and whispered, "It's done." Not because everything was fixed, but because I finally stopped needing it to be. Months rolled on. Work thrived. My boss noticed the shift in me, confidence replacing hesitation. I started leading projects, mentoring younger developers, even speaking at a local tech meetup. For the first time, I didn't shrink to make anyone comfortable. People sometimes ask what changed me, and I tell them the truth. I stopped mistaking guilt for love. Then one evening, a letter arrived, not a bill. Not junk mail. A handwritten envelope with my mother's looping script. Inside was a single page. Jess. I've replayed that night more times than I can count. I don't expect you to forgive us, but I want you to know that I finally understand what I did. I thought love meant sacrifice, even if the sacrifice was yours. I was wrong. We're okay. Modest. Your father fixes shelves for neighbors. I bake pies for a church fundraiser. Melissa moved in with us for a while. She's working retail now. She's quieter. Maybe she's learning too. I hope you're happy. You always deserve to be. Love, Mom. I read it twice, then set it on the counter beside the candle. No tears came, only warmth. Not reconciliation, but peace. I didn't write back, not because I didn't care, but because some stories close best in silence. A year later, I sold the house. It wasn't haunted anymore, but it had served its purpose. I moved into a downtown apartment, smaller, sunnier, with plants on every windowsill and no ghosts hiding in the hallways. Christine helped me move, blasting old 2000s songs while we unpacked boxes. When we were done, she dropped onto the couch beside me and grinned. You did it. Yeah, I said. I finally did. We toasted with cheap champagne and Chinese takeout, laughing until the neighbors banged on the wall. For the first time, my laughter didn't echo off empty promises. It stayed, solid, honest, alive. Now, whenever people ask about family, I smile. I don't say much, not because I'm ashamed, but because I learned that pain doesn't always need an audience. I still visit my parents occasionally, holidays mostly. We keep things polite, brief, gentle. There are no more big dinners, no more shared finances, no more pretending. Sometimes Mom squeezes my hand a little too long before I leave, sometimes Dad asks if I'm doing okay, and I see genuine pride flicker behind his eyes. Melissa never brings up the past, and I never ask that. That's our truce, silence that finally means respect. People think betrayal destroys love completely, but I've learned something different. It purifies it. What survives after betrayal isn't the illusion of closeness, it's truth stripped bare, and truth, though it hurts, is the only thing worth building on. Last week, I stood on my balcony watching a thunderstorm roll over the city. The air smelled like metal and renewal. Lightning flashed, illuminating the skyline like a heartbeat. For the first time in a long time, I whispered thank you, not to anyone in particular, but to life itself. Thank you for the pain that taught me to choose peace, thank you for the silence that showed me who I am without noise, thank you for the ending that became a beginning. If you're still listening, maybe you've been there too, maybe you've heard a sentence that cracked your world open, maybe you've realized love shouldn't cost you everything you are. Here's what I can tell you, you can walk away without hating them, you can protect your heart and still keep it kind, you can build a life that no one else controls. Family doesn't always mean blood. Sometimes it means the people who remind you of your worth when you forget. These days, my mornings start with sunlight, not anxiety. I water my plants, feed my cat, open my laptop, and write code that behaves exactly the way I tell it to, and every once in a while, when the quiet feels too big, I play that old voicemail, the one I accidentally saved from years ago. My mom's voice saying, "We love you, Jess." It's not true anymore, not the way it was then, but it doesn't hurt. It just sounds finished. To anyone out there listening, if your peace costs you your family, pay it. If your safety costs you your comfort, pay that too, because the price of staying small is always higher than the cost of walking away. You deserve a life where you're not a supporting character in someone else's story, you deserve to be the author. If this story spoke to you, share it. If you've ever rebuilt after betrayal, tell me how, maybe your words will help someone else hang up the call they were never meant to hear. Because sometimes, the truth that breaks you, is the same truth that sets you free.